I want you to picture that it's December 26, 1963. It's the day after Christmas. The Beatles just released I Want to Hold Your Hand, and I saw her standing there, and it's the #1 song. But most importantly, 66 goals were scored across 10 games of football in England's top flight. First of all, Merry Christmas for those who are celebrating, and Happy Holidays in general. But secondly, if you've been in the football community for long enough, or even just at least a year, you know that in the Premier League, or generally just England's top flight, Boxing Day fixtures are ones that we as fans typically look forward to very much. Generally speaking, it feels like there's something in the air on that day, and the games end up being pretty exciting. But of course, as we're reminded pretty much every single year, 1963 takes the cake for just how ludicrous the results were. But with that being said, I don't think we ever take a look at these results outside of just the face value of it. And granted, that's in large part due to the fact that not a lot of us in this space were alive and watching football on this day. But if you were there to watch these games, please comment down below. We need to know. So let yourself be known, Unc. Please do it. But I figured what better day than to dive into these games a little bit and explore the lore of English football. And real quick, boys, if you're new to the channel and enjoying the content, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. We're dropping weekly football videos, so don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload. We're going to be going crazy in 2025. And of course, boys, if you're not new to the channel, welcome back. Glad to have you around for another video. With that being said, boys, let's get into these Boxing Day results. So as a whole, this day was insane. Like I mentioned, 66 goals were scored across all games, but there was also 6 players who scored hat tricks, 4 red cards were given, and not a single game ended without a goal. In terms of the matches themselves, I think it's best that we start off with the ones that were considered a little bit more boring. So on a day where you probably couldn't go wrong with any match to watch, this game here was probably the runt of the litter, and of course it's Leicester 2, Everton 0. So the only real notable statistic here for this match was that Everton was one of the only 2 teams on this day to not score a goal. Imagine 66 goals were scored across all the games in this competition, and you're a fan of one of the teams that just so happened to not even score a goal. How do you bounce back from that? The defending champions Everton were beaten away from home by Leicester City side that would eventually go on to finish in 11th place. So not the best showing from the Toffees, but considering how bad some of the other teams on this day were beat, probably not too bad in hindsight. So on a day with so much action going on, you can see why I say the 2-0 match is probably the most boring of the bunch. And if we keep going up the chain, you'd stumble on Sheffield Wednesday beating Bolton 3-0. So nothing was really too crazy with this one either. It was a pretty comfortable win for Sheffield, all things considered. Bolton was already in the relegation zone by the point that this match kicked off, and Sheffield just didn't really pull any punches and just gave them the beating that they really wanted to give them. Honestly, there was not much stopping them on this day. One fun fact for this match is that Sheffield Wednesday manager at that point, Vic Buckingham, would eventually go on to manage Barcelona. But on top of that, he would also manage Ajax. And at Ajax is where he would give a certain 17-year-old Dutch kid by the name of Johan Cruyff his debut into football. So he is just a little bit considered one of the pioneers of total football, and this guy was managing Sheffield Wednesday in 1963. Football lore is crazy, I tell you. So believe it or not, the next few games that we're going to talk about all ended up being draws, but the way these games panned out makes them a lot more interesting than the last 2 games that we just talked about. We have a 3-3 tie between Wolves and Aston Villa. It's kind of hard to find exact time records for this match in particular, so it's hard to say if this result was necessarily a dramatic comeback from either side, or if it was just a very back and forth game as a whole. Ultimately, at the end of the day, regardless of what the narrative of the game was, 6 goals were scored. What is not to like about a match like this, especially as a neutral? And then the next draw takes us back to Sheffield team, but this time it's Nottingham Forest and Sheffield United, who also drew 3-3. In contrast to the Wolves Villa match, there's actually timestamps for when the goals were scored, so now we know that this game was actually a thrilling 6-goal match. See, we have a game here where Nottingham Forest actually took a 3-0 lead to start the game, but the Sheffield United team that was ever so resilient would come back and score 3 goals unanswered to tie the game. Absolute cinema in Nottingham in 1963. A team coming down from being 3 goals down to tie the game. You love to see it, and it's too bad Manchester United couldn't just do the same thing. So to follow up these 2 3-3 draws, we have a game that finished 4-4, and of course we're talking about West Brom 4, Tottenham Hotspur 4. And this match would go on to show that it's really the history of the Tottenham to just bottle things. See, just to give a little bit of context for this match as well, West Brom players would actually go on strike days before the match because they had to train in shorts despite the fact that the weather was absolutely freezing. So with the advantage of actually having had time to train, Spurs lo and behold would find themselves in the lead in this match. But the best point of the game for Spurs, they would be leading the match 4-2. But by the 80th minute, they just went ahead and bottled the lead. They pretty much just let this West Brom team do whatever they wanted. So not only did you have a match that produced 8 goals, but you also had a lead being blown by Spurs. This here, cinema. So with the draws out the way and the 2 very simple wins out the way as well, it's time to get into the absolute ass whoopings that happen on this day. First up, we have Chelsea 5, Blackpool 1. On this day, Chelsea Football Club showed absolutely no mercy. By halftime, they were already up 4-0, and maybe the current Chelsea team is watching tapes from back in the day, because this is pretty much how Chelsea is moving right now. Blackpool did get one back, but Chelsea was just miles ahead in quality the entire match, and it was just too much for them to handle. And this is just the beginning of the ass whoopings that happened on this day, because to take it a step up, Liverpool would win their match 6-1 against Stoke City. And you can imagine this is probably how Steven Gerrard imagined his final game in the Premier League would go, only for him to be disappointed. But unlike Chelsea, Liverpool actually started off a little bit slow. They were only up by 1 goal at halftime, but 3 minutes into the second half, Roger Hunt would score a brace, and really the floodgates would just open for Liverpool. And unfortunately for the team that Arteta secretly admires, Stoke City, they just really didn't have any answers. So a Liverpool team who would eventually be crowned champions just pretty much had their way with Stoke City on this day. And to follow up this 6-1 pounding, we have another 6-1 pounding. Unfortunately, it was against United. And this is very much a result we might see nowadays, but it was Burnley 6, United 1. And on this day, an 18-year-old Willie Morgan, who was actually on trial at Burnley, demolished this United side. A United side that was led by Matt Busby, that was missing a 17-year-old George Best, that had Dennis Law, they had Bobby Charlton, but that was not enough to stop this 18-year-old kid that was on trial at Burnley. Andy Lockhead for Burnley would go on to score a hat-trick, and for United, this was really a result that they would rue, because they would lose the league by 4 points. Yes, when you lose, you miss out on 3 points, but you could imagine maybe they win this result, maybe down the line they get a better result that they need as well. But a 6-1 pounding from Burnley, like I said, something we might see today, cost United the league this year. To follow up 2 matches that both resulted in 7 goals, we have a game that gave us 10 goals, and I'm talking Blackburn 8, West Ham 2. This was a very good result for Blackburn, as they were actually away from home, and by halftime they were up 4-0 at West Ham's ground, thanks to goals from Andy McAvoy and Mike Ferguson. McAvoy would actually secure his hat-trick in the second half, as they would go on to score 4 more goals, and West Ham would get 2 goals back, but it didn't really help much in the grand scheme of things. And 8-2 results happened, right? United beat Arsenal 8-2, but it was at Old Trafford. They got beat 8-2 at home. You know how bad that is? Imagine going to this game on this day, the day after Christmas. Everything's so happy, everything is cheerful, and then you just witness your team get absolutely slaughtered 8-2. I don't know what I would do with myself. But to follow that result up, we have the last game, which in all honesty is probably the craziest scoreline, and it's still each team's respective biggest win and biggest loss in their history. We have Fulham 10, Ipswich 1. This is a result that technically, on paper, could happen this season if things go Fulham's way next time they play Ipswich. So keep this in mind for those that play Fantasy Premier League. Make sure you triple captain Smith Rowe next time they play against Ipswich. Not only is this each team's, like I said, biggest win and biggest loss, this was a day where we also saw another piece of footballing history, as the fastest hat-trick in the English top division was scored on this day before Sadio Mane broke the record in 2015. It would be Graham Leggett who would actually secure the hat-trick that broke the record, as he would be the one to start things out for Fulham in this absolute ass whooping. But you have to question, what the hell happens to you, a top flight English team, to lose 10-1 in one game? Not aggregate, this is one game. Where they hung over from Christmas? Did they have too many pies, chicken pot pies? Did they have too much turkey? What the hell happened to Ipswich on this day? We'll never know. And the craziest thing too about this win is that Fulham had only scored 25 goals in their last 23 matches. So for them to just rock up and out of nowhere score 10 goals, have a player score a hat-trick within 3 minutes, something was in the air on this day, and I'm telling you, this is what really kicked off the Boxing Day miracles that we just see nowadays. You love to see it. We need more results like this in football. Boxing Day matches are still really exciting. Heck, tomorrow we have some good matches scheduled, but on this day, 1963, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was because the Beatles were absolutely on fire, so people in England were just going crazy, but this is a day that will live on forever.